Hello and welcome everybody to our third installment of show notes. Is it our third or is it our fourth, Mr. Bill? I don't. Okay, all right. I think our fourth already. Amazing. Another, this is a part of our San Diego Sound Project music series that features up and coming and very, very talented San Diego artists in the local area. And it's sponsored by the Conrad Prebys Foundation. We have a team of advisors who have helped gather all these wonderful musicians together. And so what we do is we're taking this time on show notes to talk to our artists, our featured artists, and learn more about them, about their career, about how they got involved in music. And then we also have them here at the Museum of Making Music, where I am right now, to do a concert performance. And so we're very excited about today's guest, Shua, singer-songwriter. Just every bit of music that I've been able to hear, just as putting this event together, has been heartfelt, has been emotionally connecting, and it just really makes you feel like part of the human condition, part of the human experience. So we've got him here today, and Mr. Bill as well. And if you notice, I am not at my home studio, and I'm not driving the bus. Actually, our good friend and collaborator and coworker Jillian Harrington is behind the scenes running today's streams, and so she's got us off to a great start. And I want to bring us all together right now. Welcome, Mr. Bill, and welcome Shua to our show notes episode, gentlemen. Hope we're
Yeah,
doing
thank
well.
you.
I'm gonna
Hello.
duck out to the side and let you guys take over the conversation.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, BJ. Hey, Shua, welcome.
Hi.
Hi, man. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for taking your time out to join us today. And
Of course.
I'm going to continue the thanks for Jillian because she is actually spearheading the San Diego Sound Project, of which you are a part of that series. And just to remind everybody again, right now, Shua will be playing this coming Saturday, November 20th, at the museum, 7 o'clock p.m. And Shua, I understand you're bringing a band with you. Is this your band or these pickup musicians that you know around town? Tell us a bit about who they are and what they play.
There's some good friends of mine that do play for other artists and play around and in their own
Mhm.
and as a band as well. Marcus Donaldson, who is a music director, actually at a church, and he plays drums, and he's actually an amazing vocalist and writer too. And Julius Witherspoon, who plays keys and is actually probably much better at singing than I am, but I got him playing keys and. I've tricked him into doing that. Julius Obergen, who is an artist in his own right as well and plays electric guitar, fantastic. And Darwin Avalos, who's the bass player. They're
Mhm.
they're all incredible,
Okay.
incredible musicians.
That's great. It sounds like you've surrounded yourself with players whom you feel perhaps are of equal or greater caliber than yourself, which is really the way to go.
They pull me up for
Yes,
sure.
absolutely. And it's always about sort of continuing that upward rise in your journey. Um, Couple more people I need to thank as we get rolling here. And of course, one would be Brandon Stepp, founder and executive director of the David's Heart Foundation, and Dr. Merrill Goldberg from Cal State San Marcos. They both recommended you very highly for the show notes today and for the concert. So, if it's okay, Shua, I'd like to start out with the David's Heart Foundation. I took a look at their website, and his vision is really impressive. His mentorship to hundreds of young people, and he's using the tools of contemporary music for inspiration. So, what would you tell us about your experience with the David's Heart Foundation?
Well, when I was about 15, I think I was 15 years old when I went through the program myself. And it was probably one of the main reasons formatively that I find myself in music today, where it was like, oh, I think I can actually do this. I think this is actually a possibility.
Nice.
And Brant, at the time it was actually significantly smaller. They were like in a garage studio, and now they have like a sweet space, and they're building out a whole new space because of people's generosity and
Wow.
because they're doing something really good. But I was in a garage, and it was Brandon Stepp,
Mhm.
Rashad Graham, and Joseph Mack or Joe Mack, and it was amazing. Them being another example of just being around extremely talented
Mhm.
people who know what they're doing and are teaching you and showing you and walking alongside you. And for a good amount of years in my life, they taught me so much in terms of production and songwriting and just spending hours in the studio figuring stuff out. And yeah, and it was one of those things where for a lot of students, it's, you get good grades, and you trade that for studio time.
Mhm.
And I was actually kind of a huge nerd, so I got a lot of good
Mhm.
hours in there. I wasn't necessarily the typical student or mentee in
Mhm.
it, but they were great.
That's
They're awesome.
very cool. And as a young adult, having people who were sort of already involved in that world take the time out to mentor you, that really had to mean a whole lot to you and inspire
Yeah,
you.
yeah, and it's something that you know I couldn't have asked for better than that.
Mhm.
And I didn't imagine that it would actually happen. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just kind of knew I had this thing, and I didn't know what to do with it.
Mhm.
And they took it and they molded it in a way that I'm really grateful for.
Yeah. So they could see the potential in you, even if you didn't quite know where it was going. They saw it and they were able to, like you say, shape it and mold it and help you get
Yeah.
on that road. That's, man, yeah, I mean, that is just, that's worth its weight in gold. Now let's back up a little bit. Well, let me first say I did watch Brandon's TED Talk, and again, very impressed by what he does, what he did, and the energy that he brought to that TED Talk. I can imagine if that was the energy he brought to you and the other students in the foundation, it just had to give you that springboard. So now at age 8, you started to play piano because there was a piano donated to your family by the church.
Hmm.
And you told a funny story in another interview I watched about how it was in the garage so that as you were learning, it wouldn't be driving the family crazy, maybe.
Yeah.
But now, when that piano first came,
Still did.
that's okay. That means you're rocking it. Um, what was your emotional response when that piano came to your family? It was in the garage, and you first started playing it. What did you feel?
Well, I was already just a very emotional kid in general.
Hmm.
And so going in there, and it was, the garage, all we had is a little garage light hanging from the ceiling. And it was dark and moody, and I would get in there, and it was some of the first moments in my life where I felt what I called like emotional resonance,
Oh, nice. I like that.
where it was like, oh, this is a moment where I'm actually, it's like a feedback to what I'm feeling. So I'm pressing a note.
Mhm.
I'm trying to make it sound like how I feel. And
Yeah,
I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have
sure.
any lessons,
Yeah.
anything like that. And even if it was, I think I was 8, 8, 9 years
Mhm.
old, and I would, if I was feeling sad, I'd play, slow, and
Mhm.
you know, I'd use all the black keys only because that sounds good to me. All the white ones, they get confusing down there. And so, and then at a certain point, you know, YouTube becomes a thing, and I
Yeah.
start watching YouTube videos and just listening, and eventually picked up an ear
Mhm.
where I could listen to something and begin to dissect it just from listening to it, which
Nice.
I'm grateful for that gift.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, yeah. And so, yeah, that's kind of where that developed.
Now, as you were listening, as you were playing the black keys, the white keys, different areas of the keyboard, because as you know, it in the bottom end and the top end, they're completely different worlds, right? In terms of the timbre, in terms of the emotion. Do you happen to remember the first song that you figured out?
Oh man, that is tough. Um, Honestly, you know what it probably was? I'm also, very into storytelling and movies
Mhm.
and books and all those things. It might have been like some song about from Lord of the Rings or something like
Oh
that.
man. Wow.
It might have been like a little what's the little there's a Hobbit song or
Mhm.
something like that. The little people in the movie, Frodo, he goes and takes the ring to the mountain, all that stuff.
Right, right.
The Shire or whatever it was.
Yeah,
I just learned the little line,
yeah.
almost like one finger style,
Mhm.
da, da,
Mhm.
da, 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 like that. And then eventually I learned how to actually play it. I think that might have been the first. This is before I started singing, so that was what I was into.
Very cool. So that whole storytelling and imagination was fired up by that movie, and it transferred over to the piano. And
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The movie that inspired me and also gave me nightmares because I was an 8.
Oh my, yeah.
It was great. I loved
That's
it.
pretty heavy for an 8-year-old. I think if I'd seen that when I was 8, I would have been permanently permanently traumatized.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
I think I read or heard you say in another interview that you also have siblings that are musical or pursuing music.
Yeah,
And,
I have 4
oh
brothers,
man, okay.
and they're all way too talented. One of my brothers, his name is John Keith,
Mhm.
and he's a hip hop artist. Does rap? He raps and
Okay.
sings as well,
Mhm.
and I think I mean, he's built even more of a legitimate career than I have.
Yeah.
He's paying rent on albums that he puts out, which is really great.
Wow. Yeah. Good for him.
He's amazing. And then my little brother is also extremely talented.
Mhm.
Writes songs, produces, both of them produce their own music,
Yeah.
write, record
Yeah.
themselves, all of it, and they're extremely talented. My older brother as well,
Yeah.
who we kind of were inspired by him because he went off. He's 9 years older than me. I think he went off to LA recording school when we were still little, and he had just left.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so we're all, we all got a little music, a little poetry in us.
Mhm. Yeah. Just kind of born with it, huh? It, I love hearing this, Shua, because one of the areas of our museum talks about life at home. The exhibit itself actually is called Life at Home, and we talk about how the piano served as the family entertainment center. Now, you had the piano in the garage, you and all your brothers ended up being very musical. Did the piano sort of pull you in together? Was that the case in your family a little bit as well?
Yeah, me and my brothers. I mean, imagine, my dad's worked. He worked a lot.
Mhm.
He worked a lot. It was that's how we ate. And my mom was with us most of the time. And God bless her heart, we were just cartoon characters, just 4 cartoon characters bouncing off the walls. And then we would make little songs. So we'd get around the piano,
Mhm.
and they didn't know how to play yet. They were smaller than me, but I would play some
Yeah,
chords,
yeah.
right? Weird songs, and then we drag our mom in to listen to it. We would say, "Mom, hey, we're gonna do a show for you,"
Uh-huh.
and it was always ridiculous. But I think we just there's something about us. We loved attention from the beginning, and so
Yeah.
um, yeah. So it did start like that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
we all just wanted to have fun together,
right.
gather around, sing some songs,
Yeah.
be ridiculous.
Well, that's so cool because really this is an idea that goes all the way back into the 1800s, and it's nice to hear you say that right now in 2021 that that still is the case. You have an instrument, particularly piano, because it really is sort of a gathering place, and like you
Yeah,
say, you and your brothers all wanted to show off. And I'm going to guess your mom, probably like most moms, no matter what you did, said, "Oh, that's just beautiful, boys. I
yeah,
love
yeah.
it,"
For
right?
the most part, yeah.
For the most part. That's fantastic. Um, now, do you, I mean, since you and your brothers are all in your own career paths now, do you ever get back together and sort of bounce ideas off one another and see what a collaboration would work like between
I
the?
mean, we help each other out every once in a
Mhm,
while. Um, I've yet to get my brother John on a track, or my other
mhm,
brothers, but in terms of specifically John's music, I think we've all been in the studio with
yeah,
him every once in a while, and I'll, I have think of certain chords that he might not be able to think of
mhm.
himself, and intro tracks for him, or like say, hey, this needs an oboe, and he's like, what's an oboe? Let's go for it. Let's do
Mhm.
this. Things like that where we're together
Yeah,
good amount of the time, and so
nice.
those things, that's just what we end up talking
Yeah,
about and doing
yeah,
together. And so yeah, we definitely influence one another.
that's great. When you say together, you're actually physically in the studio together, sharing
Yeah,
ideas.
every once in a while we find ourselves in the studio together.
Nice.
I think in terms of genre, I'm the most different,
Mhm.
so I don't have a lot to add in terms of like bars, in terms of rapping, like here's this specific rhyme scheme and here's this intelligent thought that I have this, so
Right.
that's kind of, they bounce that off of one another. But in terms of composition, different things like
Mhm.
that, when I do get to be in the room, that's what I'll throw in my 2 cents.
Yeah, yeah. And it sounds like you've got really a stronger knowledge of maybe the orchestral instruments like the oboe and brass and winds and so forth.
Yeah, again, huge nerd. Not cool like my brothers. Uh,
I
yeah.
happen to think orchestra is way cool. And if you were to throw in an 8 measure, just huge orchestra section in the middle of some driving rap tune, that could be a whole new genre.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, do you ever throw ideas back and forth over the internet as well?
Oh yeah, I mean, we send each other songs all the time, demos of tunes and all of that. And I mean, not all the time do we always have something to say. We're just kind of, there to cheer each other on.
Right. Okay.
And just like, that's great, that's amazing. You should, or what are you, is there going to be a vocal here? Are you going to have somebody featured? All these. It's a lot of. It's actually kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just being able to hear something like that, even if you're not in the room
Sure.
together.
Yeah. And I mean, it sounds like you guys have a great close relationship. You can collaborate, give ideas back and forth. And
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
again, I'm going to say it one more time, worth its weight in gold. Now, you had to have studied in some way or another to become proficient on the piano and guitar. Piano came first, guitar later. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Piano first, guitar later. Yeah.
But it sounds as though you're more self-taught. Would that really be the greater percentage of what you're learning was?
Yeah. In terms of, like getting in front of a sheet music and reading, it'll take me about 2 months to figure some about these out myself. But if I listened to it, I'm could pick it up and all those things. And that's kind of how I taught myself.
Yeah.
And then just at a certain point, I think if you sit at the instrument enough, you're gonna notice that there are patterns.
Yeah. Yes.
And then eventually I learned that that was called music
Mhm.
theory and picked up on some of those things.
Right.
And then so when I got around other musicians that were going to school,
Mhm.
that were, yeah, whether it was in high school or in college where they, went and studied,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I know that. Why do I know that
Yeah.
already?
Yeah.
Why do I understand that concept? And it's just because it's there. It's not only a concept, it's like grounded in the actual instruments itself.
Right.
And so, the little that I've taught, I try to teach from that perspective. It's
Mhm.
like this theory thing and this all the composition and understanding, all that isn't too difficult if you just pick up on the patterns
Yeah.
that are there in front of you.
Right.
So that's why I try to. I'm still not the best at it, but
Mhm.
I did kind of figure out a lot of it myself.
Mhm. Well, coming about it in that direction, because myself, I'm more of an ear player as well. Personally, I think that gives you more of a freedom to be sort of more musical because you're not looking at a structured piece of sheet music and you're learning chords, as you say, by hearing them and you're figuring out what the chords are versus learning how to read. They're not necessarily learning chords, just where those notes are on the page and how they
Yeah.
relate to the instrument.
Yeah.
And when you bring the theory in, then I don't want to say backwards, but you know what I mean, in reverse order,
Yeah.
it just bolsters what you already know.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of, it's been an advantage too. And I grew up in a church environment,
Mhm.
and that was an advantage too, because you kind of just you pick it up, you get in there, and then you could just start playing with a
Yeah.
group of people because you hear it, and then
Right.
you're okay. I know these chords. Let's
Yeah.
do this. I can pick up this progression and just jump in, sort of deal. Where sometimes, I've had friends or people that usually just like they stick to reading,
Mhm.
and they wouldn't necessarily be able to do that. They'll give me some
Right.
sheet music, or I'm lost
Or
almost.
I'm
So,
lost. Yeah.
um, which I wish I could read still. They still have me there, but yeah,
Yeah. No, that's so true. It's as I say, it gives you a freedom to just and like you say, oh yeah, I know those chords, and you can jump in and start making some music with them. Um, Personally, I learned to sight read on guitar just because I fell flat on my face at an audition and crawled out with my tail between my legs. But it
that'll do.
wasn't something, and I was 26, 27 years old at the time. So it wasn't something that I had set out to do, but it became, a tool that I realized I needed to have in
Yeah,
my bag of tricks. And I think most people would agree with that. You'll do it when it becomes a necessity, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so
Um,
far, I'm just writing my own songs, and sitting at Ableton, it's just beep boop, so
sure.
it hasn't yet become a necessity, but
Yeah. Yeah. maybe someday. And, I don't think it necessarily makes you a better musician. It just gives you more tools in your bag of tricks.
Right, right.
Now, you in an interview I was watching, you told a funny story where your mom was complimenting your piano playing at one point in your life, but she suggested that you don't sing. Could you could you share that story with our audience? Because I'm
Yeah.
going to preface that by saying you have a beautiful voice. So,
Oh, thank you. Yeah, when I started out, I don't know that I did. I think it might have just come with time. But yeah, I eventually I got my own piano that wasn't in the garage.
Mhm.
Got to a place where I had my own. It's actually this piano that's right behind me.
Okay.
When I'm 13, 14. And I would sit in my room, and I started experimenting with singing. Um, God knows why, but I started singing. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to sing, and so I would start singing. Uh, you know, in retrospect, it probably didn't sound that great at the time, but my mom, who's just very loving and kind,
Mhm.
in a very gentle way, came to
Mhm.
my room and was like, "Hey, your piano playing is just beautiful. I just love it, but you're singing. Um, she actually said maybe you should leave that to your brothers, who
Oh,
actually at the
wow.
time they could sing on key."
Mhm.
And so she was giving me a bit of which at the time she was like, "This is good advice for him. He should play instruments. His brothers should sing." At the time, she was like, "They're definitely going to be a family band."
Yeah.
That hasn't come to pass yet, but it would have worked out if that was the case. But I did. It actually just made me upset, and in my stubborn sort of attitude, I was like, "Oh, now I'm going to show you." Um, uh, and so in many ways, it's thanks to her that I have the career that I
Oh, that's
have.
great in a funny roundabout way. And parents are so good at trying to sort of let you down gently without
Yeah,
without
and it
crushing
was
your
it was
dream.
very gentle. I was just also a very sensitive kid.
Well, I'm going to say, and I find this very interesting, Shua, you have a really resonant sort of baritone voice in your speaking, but when I hear you sing, you have a very beautiful lyrical tenor voice. Now, did it just come out that way, or is that sort of a choice that you're making?
It's great to hear that I have a lovely baritone voice. By the way, I don't. What you hear in your head is different than what comes out. Uh,
Yes.
Makes me feel very strong.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I decided. I sing stylistically
Mhm.
pretty intentionally.
Okay.
Intentionally, me and my brothers, when we were growing up and we were singing, and myself, I would just mimic whatever I heard.
Yeah,
And so, I was listening. I heard a lot of gospel music growing up in
sure.
my
Yeah.
house. So, we just copy what you hear. You copy the inflection, the tone, like the depth in the voice, like how
Mhm.
open it was, or how closed, or how high and nasally. Of course, we didn't know any of it. It was just like, let's try and make. It was
Sure.
like almost like mocking.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like almost joking, like I'm
Mm.
gonna mock this sort of sound because I
Mhm.
think it sounds funny or whatever.
Yeah.
And then so when I eventually started getting into trying to figure out what I wanted to do and how I wanted to sing,
Mhm.
and I think that in different moments, different inflections fit what you're trying to say and what you're trying to get across.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so I don't know, I've just kind of naturally found myself singing in that sort of a tone.
Mhm. Okay.
Um, I could probably, it's not even, I don't, it's on purpose. And I try to sing it. Some vocal coaches have been like, does that hurt your voice?
Mhm.
Like, is
Yeah,
that good
okay.
for your
Yeah.
voice? And then, they'll be like, okay, this is fine. Let's do this, this. And which I have had vocal coaches, by the way. So I
Okay.
never
Alright.
didn't really have many piano teachers. But I have had some really great vocal coaches over time, at
Mhm.
least three. Um, that have been very helpful in making
Great.
sure that I'm not hurting my voice as I'm choosing to stylistically sing,
Yeah,
which
good,
is,
good.
a lot of modern singers, I think they're actually they might be hurting themselves with
Sure.
the sort of style that's really
Oh, yeah.
popular right
Yeah,
now. But,
yeah, yeah.
it sounds great. And so, yeah, it is on purpose because I'm just trying to convey something in a sort of storytelling voice that makes sense with what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, you do it really well. And it's funny you talk about the hurting your voice and not lasting. One of the kind of heavier bands in the 70s was Deep Purple, and their singers would sing up I mean, in the high screamy range, and they
Yeah.
burn through singers pretty regularly. So,
Yeah.
you absolutely can hurt your voice. Would you care to let us know who those vocal coaches were in your life?
One of those vocal coaches that most recently, um, Jimena Avalos, she's a singer. She actually sings around town, and she sings in churches too, and she's incredible.
Nice.
She's really knowledgeable. And when I was 18, I started singing at this big church in town, and it was my first kind of time being in front of a lot of people, and it was lights, camera, action, that whole sort of deal.
Sure.
And so it was first, they had like vocal mentors there to say, like, try this, don't do that, sing, go into your head voice here. We're singing these exact parts, blending, all of that, which, you hone and figure out what you're doing and all of that. And so I met her there. And then just recently, I actually was like, I need to just, especially right after the pandemic and all the fun that was, wanted to kind of work on my voice again, and because I wasn't singing in front of anything. So once it was, I got vaccinated, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to somebody and do some vocal lessons. And so I sat down with her, and she was great.
Awesome. Good. And there's nothing like an inspiring teacher to motivate you and perhaps point out some things that you hadn't thought of on your own that will help enhance what you're doing. Now, you describe yourself as a storyteller turned songwriter. And obviously, from our conversation, you have a really vivid imagination for stories. Tell us a bit about your storytelling and then how that morphed into songwriting.
Yeah, well, for a long time, I loved reading growing up. I think if you read enough, you eventually kind of catch a bug for wanting to tell your own sort of story, getting lost in those stories. And so that's where my interest in, communicating came from. I would read, and I loved fantasy. I loved sci-fi. I loved, my dad was when we were growing up, he would draw a lot of comic books and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, really?
He read comic books. And so I actually have a huge, that yellow box back there. I've got a big stack of comic books, nice. which is fun. And so storytelling and sort of fantastic, strange stories, and even for me, history eventually became one of my favorite subjects. I just love stories, the stories that are been told and made up and based in some of the history of our actual world or history itself. And so I started writing little fun stories right around the same time that I started playing piano, actually, right around.
Okay. All right.
And so, I was either by myself in the garage being moody and playing piano, or I was upstairs in my room writing a story being moody. That was something I really fell in love with, and fell in love with language and turn of words, and then eventually poetry. And then as I started writing songs, I was like, oh, I can tell a story with a song as well, or just express an emotion with the song, or express something that happened to me, or a concept about the world. And so that's how that kind of morphed. It kind of was happening at the same time, actually. And then music eventually kind of won out.
Now, as you found that you could write stories, but write them as songs, while you're writing these story lyrics as that became song lyrics, were you starting to hear melodies in your mind as you did that? Or did you say, here's my story, my lyrics, now I'm going to write a melody to those?
Well, there's just sound going through my head all the time.
Okay.
Kind of incessant. I've recently gotten into practicing an Orthodox Christian practice is ancient silence and solitude. I'm very religious, and so I've started getting into that so I can shut my brain up.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's just going a billion miles a minute, and there's always a song up there.
Wow.
And eventually I've found the way to get some of those out, and it's usually starts with music first, not necessarily words.
Okay.
And so there'll be a sound, there'll be a chord, there'll be something that I'm humming, something that's just like incessantly repeating over and over again in my brain. And then I'll put phrases to it, and then I'll put words to it. And sometimes I'll just start humming without words,
Mhm.
find a melody, and then words will just kind of come out, or phrase will kind of just come out, and I'll follow the muse basically.
Mhm.
What is, I don't know, what is supposed to be said in this moment, sort of thing.
Yep. And the muse, and as you were just indicating, I firmly believe it comes from up there somewhere, and we end up being the vessel to bring it out to the world.
Yeah.
So I'm right there with you. And I want to share actually a few bits of your lyrics here, because they really do paint a picture and tell a story. So let me read the lyric, and then we'll talk a little bit about them. This first one is from Plaza Cuernavaca. Here's the lyric. Plaza Cuernavaca is where I saw the light. The stickers on the ceiling made me feel all right. I begged them, let me fall asleep to Jungle Book. The melodies, the harmonies, they had me shook. That's a story right there. I can just see you drifting off to sleep listening to the music of the Jungle Book, which is so warm and, to use your term, moody. They use the minor six chords so well in that music. So
Yeah.
did that music find its way into your subconscious and then ultimately into your own writing?
Yeah, it did actually. I mean, I paint that picture because that's where I always kind of credit the beginnings of the sort of musical thing in me. We were
Yeah.
always listening to gospel music around the house, and then when it was time to go to bed, we had a little cassette player. If I know you know what that is. Some of my
I
peers don't
know him
know what it
well.
is. But we had a little cassette player, and we had two. We had Mozart and we had Jungle Book.
Oh,
And
wow.
because I love the movie Jungle Book, I would often say, can I listen to Jungle Book, or can I listen to this little Mozart cassette? And it did give you that sort of warm feeling. And then we had these stickers on our ceiling that were little stars, and they would glow in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd stare up at the ceiling and kind of drift off to the sound of, because I'm the king of the gym, VIP, like all that sort of thing, that soulful tone that's throughout that movie. And
Right.
it definitely influenced, the way I write, some chord structures, different things like that, along with some of those gospel influences as well. I love the good Disney movie growing up. The Jungle Books, the Peter Pans, and all that.
Yeah. The people they get to write the music for their movies are top notch.
Oh yeah.
Period.
And that's also some of the storytelling thing. It's like those songs were just conveying what the characters in the movies were feeling or experiencing, and so that influenced me well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let me read some more lyrics from the same song, and we'll talk about those for a second. Here they are. 3 a.m. You hit me with insomnia, insecurities while I'm approaching you. Tell me I can do it. Tell me I'm a star. Rip the rug from underneath me. Take a fall. What a picture. I think anybody who has decided I'm going to go all in and make music my career can relate to that, because you have to let go of your safety nets. So, what advice now, from your perspective, would you give to musicians who came to you and said, I'm ready for you to rip that rug out from underneath my feet"? What would you say to them?
Yeah. If it's what you want, you don't have much to lose, especially if you're younger. I did a lot where I just took chances.
Mhm.
I didn't have a job for a very long time, where I was just like, I'm just gonna do music, and I would go into the city and I'd play on corners and like busk. I had a guitar. That's where I started learning how to play guitar, because
Okay.
like, I can't take a piano with me, so I'm gonna take this little guitar and
Sure.
learn
Yeah.
a couple of chords, learn a couple tunes, and open that case and earn my lunch for that day. And so it required a certain amount of risk, and then there was a period of time where I was sleeping on couches and going around, and it's just one of those things where you don't I was like, I actually don't have anything to lose, but I have a lot to gain.
Yeah.
And I think that fear can get in the way of something like that, or maybe other people's expectations of what you should be doing.
Mhm.
And those expectations or those sort of thoughts, they usually don't really help us. Uh,
Correct.
it doesn't. I mean, because people don't even know what they want most of the
Yeah.
time. So how could
Yeah.
they know what you want?
What you want.
You
Yeah.
know? And
Right.
so usually I encourage people, especially artists. I have some friends that are artists, really talented people, and even some, some that I consider, I'm like, as a writer, as a singer, where I'm like, you've got more talent in you than me, but
Mhm.
sometimes they're just afraid to take the steps.
Yeah.
Like they're afraid to just like get in the studio and record something,
Yeah.
or do a show live or whatever. I'm like, oh my gosh, like if I had what you have, you wouldn't find me,
Right.
hesitating. And sometimes fear just ggets in the way.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of what people think. I'm afraid of what might happen. Am I gonna end up, homeless? Whatever it is. And what I try to say most of the time is like, you have nothing to lose. You have so much to gain.
Right.
Even if you spend a little while like sleeping on couches, if you have to play on a street corner, if you do a couple open mics, if you embarrass yourself, if you bomb, like, I played at, kids magic shows. Like one of my friends, actually two of the guys that are with me, um, uh, Darwin and Marcus, who bass and drums, we did like at a random lake one time. I think it was a kid's birthday party or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
and a magician went on before us, and then there were like 5-year-olds, and I'm sitting there singing like emotional songs, and I'm like, this is hilarious. I thought it was fun. This is incredibly embarrassing, but in my perspective, even then, I was like, this is a part of my story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, this is all I'm only gaining from this. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say.
Good. I think the really important takeaway there is the fear. Don't let the fear get in your way.
Yeah.
Not just the fear you put in your own mind, but the fear that you hear from other people. Like you
Yeah.
say, they want to tell you what your life should be.
Well-meaning fear.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And they can also sort of throw throw a 2x4 between your legs as you're walking, so to speak, by saying, "Do you really think you can be that good?" I mean, that chops you down. So
Yeah, I've definitely
bring
had
that out.
that.
Yeah. I want to share one from your song "Let You Down," which let me remind everybody, if you're just joining us, that Shua and his band will be playing this Saturday at the museum, 7 p.m. That's November 20th. So you can get your tickets online, or you can call us up at the museum. We'll be happy to sell them to you. And I've listened to so much of your music, and each one is a story. This one, the lyric says, "You've got the kind of heart that's trusting. Your mother and father told me so. That was before they went missing. That was before they let you go." That's that's just plain heavy. Now, did you write that about a friend or a friend
Um,
of a friend?
most everything I write is kind of an amalgamation of my own story and also the stories of those that are close to me, and
Yeah.
um, or just especially in that time that when I wrote this song, I was busking a lot,
Hmm.
and I was on the streets, and you meet a lot of interesting people, and especially here in downtown San Diego, there's a pretty wide, there's a big homeless population,
Hmm.
and so actually, I was doing stuff with Davis Harp and Brandon Stepp, and Brandon would often encourage me to just talk to people
Hmm.
and know their stories and get to know them, just hear them out.
Wow.
And
Okay.
it kind of, while my goal wasn't to like write songs about it,
Hmm.
um, it did just, I just found myself where I was like, man, some of these things are so heavy that I just can't carry them with me.
Yeah.
And so I'd go out, I'd meet people, and I'd say, hey, and I'd give them some of the money from my little guitar
Hmm.
case, I'm like, I'll split this burrito with you. And what's going on in your life? And
Yeah.
so, honestly, that's a story that I would hear quite
Hmm.
a bit. The story of, the sort of innocence that comes with youth
Hmm.
and with trusting, and how people often I don't know if it's intentional, but abuse that trust or
Yeah.
fail us or abandon us.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes when we need it, and
Yeah.
that was something that I also in certain points in my life, not my whole life. My parents were really great, but we didn't grow up. I didn't grow up in a time where things like therapy or depression or
Hmm.
anxiety attacks like were talked about. It was all taboo, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, you know, for a lot of that, I was pretty alone in dealing with that, and it would be me, and sometimes I would bring that stuff to God or whatever, and feel like,
Hmm.
whoa, and then there would be like silence, and so what do I do with that? And that's kind of where the song found some of its meat.
Yeah. You obviously have a great skill for taking the human story and turning that story or the amalgam of stories into beautifully compelling songs. And we're going to wrap up here in just a couple of minutes because I want to honor your time. Um, what would your website be, Shua, so that people can
Uh,
go take a look?
right now, I just have an Instagram.
Okay.
It's Shua at Shua the Shua ShuaTheShua, and then I post all of my information there, all the shows. If you go to the link in bio, it says right now November 20th, Museum of Making Music, and the link's in there.
Okay.
And next year, my wife has just jumped in with helping me with this whole music career thing, and she's way smarter than me, and is a manager for influencers and works with Disney and stuff. So
Oh,
she's
great.
smart, and she's
Wow.
finally helping me, which is great. So she's been helping
Yeah.
with that website and getting some of this stuff off the ground. So very soon. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see when all that stuff is
Good.
coming.
Okay. And let me also tell everybody that the songs of yours that I heard, I found on YouTube. So please do go to YouTube. Just YouTube, then type in Shua, Shua, and you'll come across the songs. That's where I heard Let You Down.
You
And
can go
also,
anywhere too. Any platform. It's on everything: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, Google. All of
great.
it.
Good, good, good. All right. Well, thank you. Um, this has really been a wonderfully educational experience for me. And I hope everybody watching has gotten the same feeling from somebody who was mentored by a wonderful foundation and was able to take that and parlay that into a career. So thank you so much. And
Thank
Shua,
you.
we look forward to seeing you this Saturday at the museum.
Looking
Uh,
forward to it.
oh yeah, we are too. And I want to meet you in person. Want to meet your band in person. We'll have a great time. Thank you. I'm going to let BJ take us out. And thanks again to Jillian for making all the magic happen back there.
Jillian.
Yeah, she's the best.
I had I'm sorry, behind the scenes for our audience. I had my camera turned off, but the entire conversation, my mouth was just wide open and listening to you guys and laughing along when the conversation arose and just right there with every point in this conversation. It was amazing. I really was tuned into a lot of what you were saying about people who beat themselves up sometimes, or people getting through that and owning that talent or owning that
Mhm.
what you have to bring it forth and bring it out there, man. That really, I can see that, and I really resonated with what you were saying there. So I mean, wonderful deep conversation. I wish we had much more time, but hopefully, what I would implore people to do is come to the museum this Saturday. Check out the San Diego Music Project event. You can go to our website, museumofmakingmusic.org, and you'll find links to get your tickets there. If you can't make it here to Carlsbad, we've got a free live stream. So, I mean, there's no excuses to enjoy this event. It's a free live stream. Otherwise, you can come in person, and we have reasonably priced seating for you. And we hope to see you there. We hope to learn and see so much more about Shua's music, and as your experiences grow, where that's going to take you. Exciting to see where that leads. Other than that, I appreciate everybody here, and we hope to see everybody again soon. If you're out there, come visit us on the line. Come visit us in person, and take care and have a wonderful weekend. The San Diego Sound Project was made possible in part by the Conrad Prebys Foundation. Additional support for live streaming was provided by the City of Carlsbad Cultural Arts Office. For more information about this program or any upcoming San Diego Sound Project event, please visit www.museumofmakingmusic.org.